You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
"55 years ago today, on July 20th, 1969, humankind landed on Earth's moon for the first time. Commander Neil Armstrong and lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin landed the Apollo lunar module Eagle on the lunar surface and shared with the world these iconic words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And July 20th is International Moon Day, so it's only fitting that we celebrate it with music. Welcome to T-Minus Deep Space from N2K Networks. I'm Maria Varmazes. Our guest today is composer Amanda Lee Falkenberg, and she wrote the Moons Symphony. This symphony presents an unparalleled fusion of visuals and music, celebrating the convergence of music and science to vividly portray past, present, and future lunar explorations. The music incorporates the perspectives of astronauts into a musical voyage throughout our galaxy. The Moons Symphony, coupled with its planetary message, is designed to grace concert halls, open-air arenas, and planetariums across the globe.
My name's Amanda Lee Falkenberg. I have been involved in the realm of music pretty much my whole life. I started playing the piano at 2.5 years old and pretty much just devoted the next 2 decades to really developing that craft. I was fascinated with the whole discipline, the progress, monitoring, or just being exposed to the repertoire of music. And then it was only in my sort of early 20s that I started composing. And that's when the passion really kind of took off for me in a whole... I mean, I thought I was satisfied playing piano concertos, and that's a thrilling experience. But then to actually be creating your own content was just completely riveting to me. So I then sort of fell into the natural progression was film composing. The visual landscape really inspired me. I started off in ballet studios, actually, and that was where my first few piano compositions were composed. Then I just spent the next 10 years doing film and television, and also writing piano concertos. And that's actually how, and probably why we are talking today about my latest project, which is the Moons Symphony, and a very, very big passion project that's been in development for the last 7 years. And I stumbled across the concept during writing my piano concerto, which was called Crossing of the Crescent Moon. And that's how I found out about these extraordinary worlds, just through some research of ancient symbolisms of crescent moons. And then I stumbled across this website that said 10 of the weirdest moons of our solar system. And
they are very weird, to be fair.
They are absolutely fascinating. And I'm like, well, we need music for these moons. And I was like, it felt like a lightning bolt had gone through me. And I just could not wait to get started on this new project, which became the Moons Symphony. And that's where we are today.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know you are joining me from Chicago right now. So you are touring the world. I mean, you're doing all sorts of cool things right now with the Moons Symphony. Tell me what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I am in Chicago. This is my first time here ever. It's a gorgeous spot of the world. And of course, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra is about to perform a suite version of the Moons Symphony. The Moons Symphony is a choral symphony, and Maren Alsop is performing what we call the symphonic, the orchestral version of that. So it's super exciting. I have my first rehearsal in a couple of weeks' time with them. But yeah, so we have visuals that will be displayed on the lawns at the Ravinia Music Festival that will accompany this symphonic suite, the Moons Symphonic Suite. And I'm so happy to say that the scientists that I consulted with during the creative process are all flying out to be part of this milestone moment for the Moons. And so, it's so special. I mean, like I said, this has been a 7-year project in the making, and these scientists have been there from day one with me. I mean, as soon as I recognised very early on in the project that the science was going to be a huge part of the creative process, I call them, it's the Moons Symphonic family of scientists, So we've just been in this from day one, and here we are having the first live performance. A lot of them flew over for the premiere recording with the London Symphony Orchestra. That was back in May 2022 with Maren Alsop conducting, and so they were there on stage with me with LSO, London Symphony Orchestra, in front of them, and it was really fun because before we would perform one of the movements, Maren Alsop allowed us time just to talk to the musicians. So I had access to these NASA scientists. I'm like, right, Linda, you're going to talk about Moon Miranda, and 2 minutes to chat about the inspiration behind this next movement. And that was really well received. And so that's definitely what lends itself to this outreach program, which is another huge aspect of this project called Lunar.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, we'll get to, there's so many, you just said so many interesting things. I was like, I'm going to put a pin in 2 of them. So I wanted to ask first about that collaboration with the scientists. I'd love to hear more about, a 7-year process. I mean, a lot of it was you, obviously, but working with these scientists and that collaboration must have been fascinating. And then I want to hear about Lunar after. So we'll do one and then the other. Yeah, tell me about that collaboration. Yeah.
Well, I think it's worth just sort of pausing and saying there are so many levels of inspiration that's wrapped into this project, and so many tentacles, and one of which is the science element to it all. And how that came about was, I didn't set out initially with the science element in mind. I'm a film composer. I know the power of music to storytell, and that's really, once I'd stumbled across these moons, I felt this emotional connection to their worlds. And I'm like, I know how to put this into a musical landscape so that more people could learn about them, because they were new concepts to me. They were new stories that I hadn't been exposed to. And I thought, well, being a teacher at heart, how can I, amplify their worlds? Well, music and putting emotion to their stories as well, it can be a very powerful combination. And so that's how I set about. But during my research phase, I was stumbling across a lot of science, which I felt could not be ignored. And I was quite excited about it. I honestly felt like it was tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, can we be part of this Moons thing that you've got going on? I'm like, join board, and then that's when I recognized I needed a choir to sing this science that I was discovering. And then so I set about the research, and this is where it kind of got interesting. And I said to my husband, I'm like, I'm finding lots of inconsistencies on this internet about, their properties and terrains. And I said, I need to consult with a science specialist, or I didn't know they were called planetary scientists, or a moon expert. That's what I said, a moon expert.
Moon experts, yes.
A moon expert. And so I started Googling this particular gentleman that I kept coming up across, and he looked like quite the character, dressed in Eskimo gear and talking about one of the moons I had decided to write about, Europa. And I'm like, I found him eventually. I found his email, and I said, turned to my husband, he's from NASA. And it was one of those emails that you kind of type your message. It's like the black hole emails, and you never know if it's going to reach them. And so I just sort of crafted this vision, and I hadn't even written music at that point. And I explained to him about the science and these moons and whether he'd be willing to talk with me. I told him the vision about a world premiere at Royal Albert Hall and Walt Disney Concert Hall. And he responded to me 7 days later and said, Amanda, your project sounds interesting. I'd be happy to Skype with you about your questions. And so we did. And then halfway through this Skype, which was phenomenal, he turned to me at one point and he said, I think the scientists would be really interested in your project, Amanda. And I said, really? He said, oh, yes.
It's so different from what I'm sure the emails they normally get. I'm sure that was a delight. He probably was like, is this real? I bet he was delighted. Yeah.
He has gone on record to say that when I went, I was invited to Caltech and NASA in 2018 to deliver the project to this room of scientists, which was just so dreamy. And before he introduced me to the scientists, he said something along the lines of, you can imagine being a planetary scientist, a leader of a multi-billion-dollar space mission. I get a lot of emails in my inbox, but this particular one was quite interesting to me. So yes, you are right with that.
I could totally see that. Just like, wow. But what a wonderful path that set you all on. So I'm so glad he responded and became one of your collaborators on this incredible. I mean, project feels like a not the right word for this. The symphony, the work that you have done, the oeuvre. If I'm using that word correctly, I think it's such a beautiful thing. And when you were crafting all of this, how do you pull in the science while also building a worlds of emotion and how do you do all that? That is a lot to work together.
Gosh, your questions are absolutely fantastic. And I think that's where I drew upon my wealth of experience, my experience as a film composer, because for me, it's a very strategic process, which is you get given a script, you have the story, and I will never go into my music story until I call it my incubation period, where I've basically absorbed all the characters and I've understood the plot and the emotional landscape. And that's exactly how I proceeded with this project. And so it was like a 3-point process. I would spend 2 to 3 months researching the science of these worlds. Then once I felt I'd penetrated and marinated as much information as I could, it would be a big announcement in the household to husband and cats. Right, I'm going into my studio to compose this stuff. And
it's Europa's turn.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It absolutely was like that. And so I put that 2 to 3 months of research to the side. I'm very old-fashioned, very traditional. I'd, listen to things, I'd read things, I'd write them down with pencil and paper. And I've got books and books of all of this and highlight stuff and pencils. But I literally just put that to the side because I'm like, I know that's just in my system now. It's time to focus on my craft, which is the music. And so then that would be that was probably the hardest part, like just really tapping into the emotional integrity of these worlds and really making sure they had their own different personality and all that kind of stuff. That it's just always tricky. I mean, there was a time there with Moon Titan, where I had spent 7 days, 8 hours a day working on what I felt was a direction for Titan. And then by the 7th day, I turned to my husband and I said, no, it doesn't resonate with me. I'm scrapping everything. I'm starting from scratch. Because if I'm not resonating with it, how on earth can I expect others? So,
of course, yeah. That is the core of art right there, really, truly, yes.
Thank you, yes. I mean, I really, I'm very passionate about that. And I mean, and because actually, at the end of the day, if you're not happy with it, why do you even bother, investing that time and energy? I mean, you can't control how other people are going to resonate. Like that is out of your world, but you can try and govern as much as possible your emotional response to what you are crafting. And that's what I've always been really passionate about as an artist, as I'm sure you are as well. And so that's what happened. And then after I'd finished composing the music, and it really had to feel, I love John Williams' word, he says inevitable, with all these themes and melodic identifications that he crafts. And I've really latched onto that. I'm like, it felt inevitable. And once I knew that feeling, I would go, wow, we're done, time to move on to the next moon. But then the other point was the poetry, was the libretto. And that was also a huge joy because I would then take an MP3 of what I'd crafted and then go and sit with my science books and listen to the melodic material and go, okay, now it's time to say that part of the science and put that in there for that scene. And then, but put the poetic spin on it, which I loved. It was such an enjoyable process. And I think there was only like 2 days that I thought, maybe I should hire a librettist and then I thought, no one's going to know this project as much as I do. There's not a lot of information about these worlds. And so I said to my husband, I think I can do this. I'm just going to try and do this. And it was such it was so enjoyable, honestly. I loved every aspect of the crafting of this. And you know what? I knew it wasn't going to last forever. Like 2 years later, I was done. So I just wanted to really, really indulge in the beauty of crafting the whole symphony.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business. Most of our listeners who deal with legacy privileged access management products know they tend to be expensive, difficult to deploy, and hard to use. Keeper Security is the answer. Keeper's Zero Trust solution delivers password, secrets, and connection management in one easy-to-use platform. It's fast to deploy, agentless, clientless, and has no implementation fees. Plus, Keeper is FedRAMP authorized. That's why we trust Keeper to prevent breaches and gain full control over privileged users. Visit keeper.io/cyberwire to schedule a quick demo. That's keeper.io/cyberwire. And thanks to Keeper Security for supporting our podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving hearing about that journey, honestly. It's just that you got to have all those conversations and just spend that time really absorbing all of that information about, how many different moons did you end up crafting work about?
Yeah, so it started with 6, and there's a really interesting story about how the 7th moon evolved. But so 6 science moons, and here's a little synopsis for you. Here's my elevator speech, as I call it.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yep.
So the first 6 moons are about the scientific data collected by space probes that tell their stories. The 7th moon is about the emotional data brought back from the hearts of astronauts after seeing our Earth from the perspective of our moon. So the 7th movement is about our moon. So that's the elevator speech. So yes, the first 6 moons are about moons of the ice and gas giants. And I really wanted to find the most compelling characteristics of those worlds. So 6 science moons, and the 7th moon is sort of a spiritual, sort of emotional. It sort of reminds us about our home and how precious it is. And, there we are exploring these worlds that do not offer life. We haven't found huge evidence of this yet. Europa might be a different story. But anyway, so, it's just a really reminder of the preciousness of our planet. And need I say more? The music takes over.
I love that. As soon as you said the final one was about the perspective of us from our moon, the image of Earthrise, it just comes. I'm a space nerd, so of course it does. But it's a picture that if I look at it too long, I start getting a little weepy because it is so poignant and powerful. It serves so well to that, exactly what you were speaking. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I can see that. I'm going to just switch a little bit to lunar because I honestly could probably talk to you for hours about just the crafting of the symphony. I love this. I'm learning so much, and I love hearing about this. I want to hear about lunar too. So tell me about, for our audience who may not know what that is, let's start with what is that?
Okay. So lunar stands for Learning Under New Artistic Regimes. I had so much fun finding that acronym, as you can imagine, because that came after I finished the recording, and I was so excited once I'd finished that phase of the project, because I knew from day one when I discovered the science, and I'm a teacher at heart. I have a boutique piano school in Dubai. I love being a teacher, but I'm also extremely curious. I think all artists are very curious human beings. And so I was just craving the science and wanting to learn as much as I possibly could, because I also knew, I thought, gosh, here's my chance to use a new theatrical platform, a new lens to educate through the emotional power of music, these incredible worlds and the science attached to them. And I'm so elated to say that the Imperial College outreach team in London have partnered with me and my vision, and they are truly passionate about what I'm trying to do, how to reach global audiences. And they've said many times to me about, especially for trying to get females into these scientific disciplines, if you come at it from an emotional doorway for them to, experience the music and then understand that, if you want to know more, there's this lunar program that's a direct bridge back into the science. I mean, the thing that my husband's always saying, the thing about your symphony, Amanda, it is a standalone piece. You can just enjoy it musically, full stop. But and that's why I wanted to make sure that the libretto was quite dripped in poetry. So it was, it lent itself eventually to the science that I wanted to bridge it back to. It's a companion guide. And I'm so happy to say that 2 years after the premiere recording, when we really could start piloting the lunar program, and again, that's with Imperial College of London, and we've done some events, and it was just so overwhelming, the reaction from the students, and it just absolutely proved to us all. It was like a pilot test run we did at the Great Hall back in December 2022. And the students' reaction was just, precious, like powerful. And it's just really given us the evidence that we needed, that we got to keep going and keep rolling this out. And so the idea is that my vision is to have Anne Marin Alsop's is a global tour. And so, anywhere that the Moons Symphony is being presented in whatever city, we will also attach this lunar program and roll it out at schools, high schools, universities, and we'll get scientists involved who will stand in front. And so the format is that the scientists will talk about certain aspects of a particular moment of that moon. And then I'll come in and talk about how the science shaped the music, and I'll show them direct examples from the musical score. And then we'll have like a 20-piece, what I call the lunar ensemble, which I've done little transcriptions from arrangements, I should say, from the symphony. So that way high school students or, college students can interact with the music. So they're just, by sitting there on stage, they're absorbing all of this. And so that's a way of outreaching even more, not sort of to professional orchestras. And so that would save the rollout of the big 95-piece orchestra and choir, whatever, for the main event. But this would be like a teaser, a warm-up for those who want to investigate the science that's baked into the symphony. And so that's what we're developing right now. And it's looking really exciting with some other events happening next year in London and Poland. And of course, Marin Alsop is hugely supportive of what I'm trying to do. And yeah, so that's Lunar.
That's so cool. There are a lot of efforts to try and get younger people to engage with sciences through music and the arts. And this is such a fascinating approach to that. I just, so many different hands-on ways, as you just mentioned, like having that sort of, that smaller scale, but also explaining not just the science, but also the music and the actual craft of, on your end, of what you did and how you took the science and made that into something. I think it's fascinating to show both sides of that. Because often it's just, I know I have sat through, and I'm sure many people have sat through, like a presentation over music, and that's not quite it's nice, but you're going way, way beyond that. And I think that's just so fascinating. And it also engages the musically minded, which is so important.
And I think I'm so grateful that I can lean on the outreach department at Imperial College. And I'm so thankful for Andrew Tibbert, the director of that, because they've obviously got all this insight and they know the gaps that are going on with the educational systems right now, and how there's so many underrepresented students out there that don't have access to this sort of thing. So we're really on a mission to make it accessible for everyone. Music is a universal language, so is space, so is our universe. And that's why I think joining up with Imperial, who really support those themes, is just, a Shazammed moment. And they've given some amazing opportunities for me so far to deliver the program. We just came from an event hosted by President Brady of Imperial College just in June, and it was so beautifully received. This was for a different audience, and they're seeing that the benefits and the potential power of music and science. The other thing I love about this is obviously STEAM. The A,
yes,
arts.
Yes, with an A.
But,
yes.
Well, I can add 3 more to that, which is astronomy, astronauts, and adventure. I mean, and arts. So, of course, that's really what we want to do, really inspire the daylights out of students and give them their own curiosity and imaginations to soar with these moons. And, often the scientists, so for instance, Zibby Turtle, who's the 3rd woman in history that's leading a planetary mission to the outer solar system with Dragonfly. She's actually flying over to Chicago and she'll be on stage with me just before the music's performed.
Oh, that's exciting. I love the Dragonfly mission, so I'm so excited to hear that. That's such a cool mission.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I was in a conference with her in Paris last year, Titan Through Time, and she knows about my lunar, and she said the great thing about what you're doing and the audiences that you're targeting, the students that you're targeting, she said the fact that you're letting them know about these missions so they can start choosing their subjects that align with, hopefully, by the time these Roto crafts reach, Titan, 7 years, she said they're going to be ready to then bring back the science, and they need postdocs. She said they would be that age that we're like, we need these postdoc students to come and join our mission. So I really enjoyed hearing that, because again, that's not a world that I know about. But so having these scientists and the support of Imperial College, it's such a dynamic team to really hope for the best of inspiration and education to as many people as we can reach out there.
That's it for T-Minus Deep Space, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. You can email us at space@n2k.com or submit the survey in the show notes. Your feedback ensures we deliver the information that keeps you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. T-Minus Deep Space is produced by Alice Carruth. Our associate producer is Liz Stokes. We are mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karpf. Simone Petrella is our president, Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I am your host, Maria Varmazis. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
This September 18th and 19th in Denver, a tight community of leading experts is gathering to tackle the toughest cybersecurity challenges we face. It's happening at MWise, the unique conference built by practitioners for practitioners. Brought to you by Mandiant, now part of Google Cloud, MWise features one-to-one access with industry experts and fresh insights into the topics that matter most, right now, to frontline practitioners. Register early and save at mwise.io/cyberwire. That's mwise.io/cyberwire.